Hello and good morning, everyone, and welcome to Business Reimagined. Now, for those of you who joined us yesterday, it is lovely to have you back. And for those of you who didn't, thank you for taking the time, for taking that an hour and a half out of no doubt what is an exceptionally busy day to join us. Now, my name is Lucy Hedges, and just for those of you who didn't tune in yesterday and might be wondering who I am a technology journalist and the technology editor for the Metro newspaper in the UK, and someone who you might occasionally see talking tech and travel on the BBC. So it's a real honour to be your host and to be part of this incredibly insightful and important two-day virtual event and COVID support seminar that's been put together by telecoms provider Bluecube and the University of Lincoln. Now, as most of you will know, Business Reimagined is all about helping businesses to navigate and overcome the coronavirus crisis with a series of presentations or webinars that aim to help businesses adapt to COVID-19 and make remote working work for their teams as well as their business. Now, I think we can all agree that the word unprecedented has been overused a lot this year. But I have to say that even after all this time, it still feels quite weird coming to you live from the confines of my kitchen come living room. But, you know, this is the norm. So it goes without saying that has already thrown so many new challenges in the direction of businesses, which have had to essentially rethink their strategies as well as address the challenges created by a completely new way of working. You know, as someone who works in the consumer technology industry, I've been in the industry for over 10 years, I know all too well how imperative technology is when it comes to working remotely. Thanks to greatly improved connectivity and workforce applications and cloud solutions and all kinds of hardware, you know, from laptops to tablets to state-of-the-art styluses, webcams, monitors, noise-cancelling headphones that will drown out your talkative flatmate. All this kind of tech is on hand to make working from home as fuss-free as possible. With the coronavirus pandemic resulting in more and more of us being asked to work remotely, it's time to get to grips with what's required for working from home for more than just one day at a time. Facing what is without a doubt an incredibly multifaceted challenge, we had some excellent speakers yesterday who were on hand to help you navigate remote working and ultimately make it work for your business with a series of excellent presentations. So, you know, we covered everything from starting from a clean slate or a blank piece of paper and the challenges that come along with that, as well as the solutions, adopting new business models and practices to how businesses adapt and look after employees. We also discussed maintaining and monitoring productivity, connectivity being an absolute must, and the various solutions for implementing the right connectivity solution for you, alongside the announcement of the new fibre network that's being gradually rolled out, as well as fine-tuning your strategy to maximise work efficiency and productivity. Paul from Bluecube reiterated yesterday that getting the right communications infrastructure in place to digitize your business to ensure employees are as productive and are working as efficiently as they would in an office environment with the right tools at their disposal. He also hammered home the point that staying engaged with customers and keeping the workforce connected is so important right now. You know, with employees' well-being particularly important during this time, it was also great to hear about getting the work-life balance right as we navigate the new normal and all the challenges and solutions surrounding that. And with today's presentations, hopefully you'll be able to sign off from today's virtual event with even more to think about. Now, while the long-term outlook of the COVID-19 pandemic is still uncertain, you know, with regards to how businesses are going to conduct themselves moving forward, businesses and individuals have to adapt to new challenges. You know, being prepared as many employees as possible, allowing as many employees to successfully work remotely with all the necessary equipment and tools that they need to do an efficient job as possible as they would if they were in the office. You know, that's what being prepared will mean. When being unprepared, working remotely, you know, can hinder communication, impeding business continuity and everyday innovation and productivity. And if support systems aren't in place, they should be a priority. You know, with our work lives doing a complete 180, it has shown us one crucial thing. Returning to work won't be as simple as hitting reset, as said by one of our speakers yesterday, but businesses need to adapt and realize they can still operate and their teams can remain productive outside of a traditional office structure with the right setup in place. Which brings me onto what Business Reimagined is all about. So just like yesterday's virtual event, we'll be hearing from a range of local business speakers who'll be looking at some of the challenges faced by businesses during lockdown and providing some expert advice, insight, and coping strategies to help you deal with them. So I'm just going to give you a breakdown of the agenda so you can know what to expect from today's virtual event. So in a few minutes, I'm going to introduce our first speaker of the day, Charlie Whittaker, who'll be leading with a presentation that's all about productivity, titled An Introduction to the Productivity Program, an Approach to Increasing Productivity. Now, Charlie will be followed by Ben James from Mosaic Co-working Office Space, who will be discussing the benefits of co-working and how this can benefit you and your business. After Ben, Ryan Bradbury from Cyberlab is up to discuss how the pandemic has changed the cyber threat landscape and asking the question, is your business secure in the new normal? And last, but certainly not least, we have Emma Tatlow from Active Lincolnshire talking about the impact of physical activity on mental health and productivity in the workplace. And the presentations will be followed by a Q&A with you guys, the audience. And finally, to close off the show, I'll be talking tech and how it enables people to work remotely and productively, as well as doing a bit of future gazing into what tech we can expect to enhance our working lives in the future. I do love a bit of future gazing. So once again, we do have a fantastic lineup of speakers for you today, talking about some really important topics. And today's 90-minute webinar will address some of the biggest changes facing businesses, including communications, IT and security, health and safety in the workplace and home office, engaging with a remote workforce, finance and HR. So like I said, we'll be covering some really important and timely issues that we hope will be useful for your business moving forward. You know, now that we are officially in lockdown 2.0, it is now more vital than ever for businesses to get their questions and concerns answered and to understand and ultimately get their heads around how to navigate the difficult month ahead. So on that note, we want to hear from you. So I'd like to encourage you to submit any questions that you have for our speakers throughout the duration of their presentations using the hashtag Business Reimagined. You can submit your questions via social media and we will try our hardest to get those questions answered. People can also email Sue Cad at the University of Lincoln for any questions and they'll be answered individually. The email address you'll need for that is scad, so SCADD at lincoln.ac.uk. Now, I think it goes without saying that the frank and fearless conversations can really only happen when people feel frank and fearless. So don't be shy and make sure you get those questions in. And before we kick off, I'd like to say a huge thanks to Blue Cube and the University of Lincoln and all the fantastic speakers who have dedicated their time to arranging what is set to be a fantastic virtual event for businesses in Lincolnshire. So on that note, I'm going to shut up now. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker of the day. Now, Charlie Whittaker is from the University of Lincoln. Some of you may remember Charlie from her short cameo at the start of yesterday's event. Just to give you a bit of background, Charlie is the Business Development Officer and part of the Research and Enterprise Department at the University of Lincoln. And she'll be talking about productivity in a presentation called An Introduction to the Productivity Program, an Approach to Increasing Productivity. Charlie, it's over to you.
Hello everybody and welcome to our session today, and thank you for joining the Business Reimagined event. I'm Charlie Whittaker and I'm a Business Development Officer at the University of Lincoln, and today I'm going to be here to talk about the Productivity Programme, which is to help support businesses. Now, if you bear with me a moment, I'm just going to pop up the presentation that I'm going to talk to you about today. So one moment and I will share my screen. There we go. So thank you again for joining everybody. And again, as I mentioned, I'm here to talk about the Productivity Programme, which is funded through the European Regional Development Fund. and it launched last year and is a 3-year programme running until August 2022. We've got 6 key strands of our programme, which you can see on the screen, and I will go through each strand in more detail throughout the presentation. But our programme essentially is to support SMEs in Greater Lincolnshire to do things differently through grant funding, business support, and collaborations with our academics here at the university. The aims of our programme are to enable businesses to innovate and bring something new to the sector that hasn't been done before. It's to boost productivity and enable businesses to grow. Essentially, the programme is designed to build collaborative relationships between the university and industry. So what is productivity? Productivity for us is all around boosting growth and making processes and services more efficient. This can be done by creating a brand new product, service, and diversifying existing product lines, or simply implementing a new process to work more quickly within a business. Now, we support a whole range of SMEs based in Greater Lincolnshire. So as you can see from the map, this is from Grimsby all the way down to Stamford, and SMEs are micro, small and medium-sized businesses with under 250 employees and less than €50 million turnover. So as you can kind of see from the screen, we can support a whole wide range of sectors. However, we do have some ineligible sectors which include retail, fisheries, banking and insurance companies. Now, if you are in one of these sectors, please do get in touch with us anyway, and we can explore how whether there is any other support available to you. Now, what do we offer? So we can offer grants which are between £1,000 and £10,000, and this is 50% match funded through the programme. We can support revenue and capital costs. So this can be to fund small capital equipment. This can be for development of systems and can go towards cost of a product or service development. Equally, this can also go towards consultancy services that perhaps you don't have the and you need that key expertise to help support you through bringing something new to your sector. So these enable our academics to support businesses where businesses may have a knowledge gap or need support in a specific area. So our vouchers are fully funded through the programme and allows businesses to access up to 20 days of an academic's time to solve the issue. So the types of projects that we support can be from feasibility studies, testing or driving forward a new idea or product or service to help boost productivity and innovation and help your business grow. We have internships, which are a great way if you're looking to inject some graduate talent within your business. Internships can have graduated within the past 3 years from any university, but are based in Greater Lincolnshire now. Businesses can receive £1,500 to £3,000 for either a 3 to 6 month placement for an internship, which graduates, we expect that they receive a minimum salary of £1,000 per month. We also offer business support. So this is free 12 hours business support. So this can vary in terms of the support that you require. We can offer one-to-one support through a specialist advisor, or this can be through events, workshops and seminars that the productivity programme hosts and holds. We also have the Business Angel Network, which is for businesses seeking equity investment, and support is available to refine proposals and strategies to increase investment opportunities. Then last but not least, we have the Growing Graduate Enterprise Scheme, which is a business startup programme aimed at recent graduates where we can help graduates through mentoring, coaching, and can provide a development needs analysis. There is also a £2,500 startup grant, which they may be able to access. So for further information on the programme, please do not hesitate to look at our website, which is on the screen now, or contact me through our email address, which is productivity@lincoln.ac.uk, or equally, give me a call and I'll always be happy to answer any queries that you may have. So thank you so much for your time today, and I'm going to now pass over to Lucy. So over to you, Lucy. Thank you.
Wonderful. Charlie, thanks so much. A brilliant presentation, lots of energy, and a great start to today's event, and a really nice introduction to the productivity program. Actually, I think it's so good to know that this kind of support is available. And like Charlie said, if you want to know more information, hop online and take a look, or give her a call, or drop her an email. I'm sure she'll be more than happy to help. So our next speaker, Ben James. Ben is an advocate for creating a digital community and works for Lincoln's new digital hub, Mosaic, which is a co-working space that offers a number of options for digital and tech businesses. So hot desking, dedicated desks, offices, meeting rooms, and great breakout space and things like that. So Ben will be asking the question, is co-working the future? So Ben, I'm going to hand over to you.
Hi everyone. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be speaking at this event. There's so many good speakers on today talking about some really, really important topics. And as we enter our second lockdown, these topics are more important than ever. So thanks for having me. Really, really delighted to be here. So let me introduce myself. I'm Ben James. I'm the engagement manager here at Mosaic. For those of you who don't know, Mosaic is a co-working space in the centre of Lincoln. We offer flexible desk space, so hot desking, dedicated desks, offices, meeting rooms, event space, all on flexible contracts to try and make it appealing for people to come and join our community here at Mosaic. So what am I talking about? Is co-working the future? Well, we certainly think so, but one thing I want to just say before we move on is that we completely understand that at the moment, government advice is work from home, stay at home, and we fully support that. So we're just saying that co-working in the future is something to think about once we're out of COVID-19 and we're back to a bit of normality. But yeah, we fully support government advice of stay at home. So what am I going to be talking about today? So the reality, where we are and the challenges that we face in terms of where we are now. Why co-working? So there's 5 key points we think co-working is the answer. And then the final thought. So the reality, where are we today? We're probably in a very different place to where we first thought we would be at the beginning of the year. In March, the Prime Minister put the whole country into lockdown, told people to work from home. Lots of companies probably had their arms forced in terms of letting people work from home, something people hadn't considered before. But we have lots and lots of people working from home, some people enjoying it, some people not. And I think that's what we have to look at, that not everyone enjoys working from home. There are real difficulties with that. And is the novelty wearing off? I think it might be. I think people are probably excited when they first had that instruction to work from home. Gives them flexibility, lots of benefits from it, but I think that novelty might be slightly wearing off. And that second quote there, I think, is really important. Are you working from home or living at work? And I think that's such a great quote, because where is that line? If you're working from home, where is that line? Where do you switch off? So yeah, that's something certainly that we, if we are working from home, that we need to think about for lots of different reasons. But working from home, as I said, isn't for everyone. It's certainly not for me. I worked from home for a couple of weeks during the first lockdown, and I found it really difficult for a number of reasons, which I'll show you now. So for one, logistics, I didn't have the setup, and two, distractions. So logistics, like I said, I didn't have the setup. I've never worked from home before, so I don't have a desk at home. So I was sat at chest of drawers. First few days I had the drawers in, so I had to sit side saddle on the chair. And then I thought, well, I'll try and get my legs under here. So I took the drawers out and squeezed my legs under. But really difficult to be working when you're at an uncomfortable workstation. I spoke to a physio recently, and he was telling me how he's seen an increase in patients from people who are working from home. So he's seen lots more people with lower back pain and lots more people with neck pain because they don't have that right setup. And as you can see, the second problem is distractions. I've got a 3-year-old, a toddler at home, and he just didn't understand why I was upstairs and he was downstairs. He didn't understand what I was doing. He kept coming upstairs, "Daddy, what are you doing?" When I was on the phone, "Daddy, who are you speaking to? Can I speak to him? Can I say hello?" Not ideal. At one point, very, very embarrassing, I was on a Zoom call, and I heard pitter patter running up the stairs, and he burst through the door, absolutely stark naked. "Daddy, I'm naked!" I've never turned my camera off so quickly in my life, and I think that's probably something we've all learned, and we've all picked up the skill of turning our camera off and putting ourselves on mute as quick as possible for when those situations arise. So I moved downstairs. I thought if he can see me, maybe he will understand that I'm busy and that I'm doing things. Didn't work. As you can see in that picture there, I was soon joined by my little mate and some of his little mates, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Hulk, the whole Avengers gang. So very, very difficult in terms of distractions for me from working from home. And on top of that, I call these the "can you just" moments. When your partner's at home or whoever you live with, there's those "can you just" moments. Can you just pop the washing out? Can you just put the washing machine on? Can you just do this? And you wouldn't be able to do these things if you were working in an office, but because you're working at home, people think that you're there to help out when essentially you're not. You're at home. And then of course another massive distraction for me certainly was the fridge and the biscuit cupboard. They're so accessible, they're so close to you, and that wasn't a great distraction for me. But one of the biggest things we need to think about when working from home as employers is our employees' mental health. As you can see here, 80% of people said that they were in a negative frame of mind in terms of their mental health during whilst working at home, and 7.4 million reported feeling lonely. So if you're lonely and you are then told to work from home, you straight away had your network cut away from you. And that's something that employers have to think about in terms of telling their employees to work from home and those employees' mental health. I'll touch on that again slightly as we go forward. So remote working, it's not going anywhere. Remote working is certainly here to stay, but that remote working doesn't just mean working from home. There are other options in terms of remote working. So I think we're going to see lots of large businesses who have large offices de-densifying those offices and looking for a smaller office, a central place, a hub where they can pull their employees together if they need to. We're going to see lots of commuters who have realize that they don't have to travel in for an hour, 2 hours, 5 days a week because they've been working remotely for the last 6 to 10 months really well. So I think we're going to see lots of commuters wanting to remote work, and people want that flexibility. That flexibility has been a huge eye opener for people, that they have been able to do the school run, or they've been able to go for a run at lunchtime, or they have that flexibility of living their life but working at the same time. But as I said, is the novelty of working from home wearing off, and that's probably where there's the opportunity for that third space. You know, the office might not be an option. The home working not viable for some people, so that's that third space, and that third space is co-working. It's a co-working space. You know, remote working works. There's no doubt, and it works. A recent study showed employers get an extra 1.4 days a month out of an employee who's working remotely. That's an extra 3 weeks a year. So remote working certainly works, but it's just making sure that employers are looking after their employees if they are making them work remotely. And employees have to do more. We can't have an employer saying you're working from home indefinitely and not offering that support. And by support, I don't mean a desk and a chair. That mental support, mental health support has to be there. It's not enough just to say you're working from home. Those sorts of things have to be thought about. And we're talking about loads of these things across these next couple of days that will help support that. So co-working is a great option in terms of this, and we can kind of split co-working and space into two sections that have their own benefits, which we'll have a look at now. So for me, there are 5 key benefits, and some of those are logistical in terms of the space, and some of those are mental and will support your mental health. So we've got structure, we've got community, we've got friendship, collaboration, and productivity. Some real key points which we think will help people work and why we think co-working could be the future. So let's have a look at structure. Working from home, where is that structure? Where is that structure from working from home? You have to be so disciplined. So working from a co-working space, that you're working remotely, you're not in the office, you don't have to commute, all those sorts of things, but you have that structure, you're organized, you know that you're going in to a co-working space on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and you've got that structure. You want to be there for 9 o'clock. You're getting up and you're moving somewhere. You're not just moving from the bedroom to the spare room or the bedroom to the dining room table. You have that movement of actually physically getting up, getting dressed and going somewhere. You have your own space. You have somewhere where you can put your laptop, 2 screens, your possessions. It's your own personal space. And someone said to me the other day, I like the structure of getting up, getting to work, getting there for 8:30, because I know if I get there at 8:30, I get the best coffee because it's just been brewed. So there's lots of benefits as well. And then you have that serious space if you need it. You've got meeting rooms where you can use and make those calls, Zoom calls, or invite people in for the meetings. So structure is really important. Community. So community for a co-working space is absolutely essential, and it's something that will improve people's mental health. Working from home, that's what you're missing. You're missing that community of people around you. When someone first joined Mosaic, we said, why are you joining? What do you want to get from this? And he said, well, I work from home. I work in my living room. I go down to London to the main head office once every week, every 2 weeks. And for the rest of the time, I'm on my own. And I want some fake colleagues. And we thought that was such a nice phrase. And that is something a co-working space can offer. It can offer fake colleagues for people to come in, see every day, have a chat with, but then sit down and get on with your work. So to get our community talking, we've set up a Slack channel. An example of some of our talking points on Slack. We've got health and fitness, we've got book swap, we've got ideas, we've got five-a-side football, and it's just a great opportunity for people to chat, talk business, talk non-business. And we've got great communal space where people can come together and have lunch and spend time together within the community of the building. We think that's really important. We don't want it to be 100 people in a building, heads down, never speak to each other. We want there to be that community within the building, and that will certainly support people's mental health. Friendships, that is so important, and we've seen so many friendships blossom within the space. As you can see here, before I joined the co-working space, I was driving myself mad on my own, and now I come in twice a week and I feel like I have colleagues, and I know for sure I have friends, which is so important for us. Collaboration, we have seen so many collaborations within the building. We've got business people who can support smaller businesses. We've got people who can come together and support each other. And that is very, very important. We had one of our members put on a virtual event recently, and the lineup, 60% of the virtual event, the speakers were from here. So that collaboration has happened in the building and is really, really important. And then productivity. All of these things lead to productivity. All of these lead to increased productivity, and they lead to improved mental health. So it's a win-win for everyone, really. A great example of productivity here. So a member had been looking for a program to help their business grow, and someone recommended ConvertBox. Something they'd looked at before but weren't sure whether to go with it. They chatted about it, spoke about the benefits. They bought the program, and the other members sat down and went through it all, showed them how it works. So it saved them time, got him more leads, and essentially made him more money. So an absolute win-win, and a great example of collaboration and that productivity coming into place. So final thoughts from us, really. Lockdown has changed the way we work, and it stifled people, and people are perhaps starting to struggle working from home, but they want that flexibility. They want that flexibility of being able to work remotely. And co-working can support that. It has both the logistical and mental benefits to support that remote working. It improves your well-being, and ultimately it's so good for your productivity. So do we think co-working is the future? Yes, we certainly do, and we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to see you come and visit us here at Mosaic. If you would like to come and have a look around, just drop us an email, and we're really happy to show you around and see what we can offer you and how we can support you and your business. So connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. There's a question section at the end. So thank you very much, and keep safe, everyone.
Ben, thank you so much. What a great presentation. Co-working is definitely something to think about. I think we can all relate to those makeshift desks that we all used at the start of lockdown. I think some people are still actually using them. I know a few of my friends are. And I think you're right. The novelty of working from home is wearing off for some people, so it's great to know that there are these other options that are going to enable people to still enhance their productivity, have the fake colleagues or friends and get that interaction that they're missing from a remote working home situation. I think the quote working from home or living at work is something to really think about as well. It's really important to get that balance right. It's great to have the option of co-working space and to have that flexibility to work remotely. So Ben, thank you so much. And like Ben said, if you've got any questions, make sure you fire them over on social media using the hashtag Business Reimagined, and we will try and get those answered towards the end of the session. Okay, so our next speaker, Ryan Bradbury, works for specialist cybersecurity consultancy CyberLab. Now, Ryan believes that cybersecurity doesn't need to be complicated, which explains why he's dedicated to helping clients improve their security with a number of solutions. While the pandemic has changed the cyber threat landscape, Ryan will be asking the question, is your business secure in the new normal? So Ryan, the virtual floor is all yours.
Lucy. Hi everyone, I'm Ryan from CyberLab. We're a Lincoln-based cybersecurity consultancy who specialise in cybersecurity as a service, working with clients who outsource their cybersecurity to us, and in return we provide an ongoing suite of products and services on a monthly basis to help secure their infrastructure and reduce risk. What I'd like to speak to about for the next 15 minutes or so is to look at how the cyber landscape has changed due to the pandemic, and to provide you with some takeaway tips and considerations in order to help secure your business in the new normal. It is estimated that half of all companies do not have adequate cybersecurity provisions in place to allow for 100% remote working. And what we've seen this year is a huge spike in cyber attacks, and it's predicted that there are now 65,000 attempted cyber attacks in the UK every day, 4,500 of which are successful, at a cost of nearly £2.5 million to the UK economy every day. I'm not trying to scare you all to death, but unfortunately, having seen through providing cyber incident response service to clients, the amount of interruption cyber attacks can cause, especially things like ransomware, where it just encrypts huge amounts of company data, it can be absolutely crippling to a business. And all organisations and workplaces have had to adapt so rapidly to the pandemic. There's been a huge shift in how the IT infrastructure and service is provided. And unfortunately, remote working now provides quite a huge attack surface to cyber criminals. And it is no trivial task to provide the same level of security to your employees outside of the relatively safe perimeter of the office environment. Security controls that exist, there's a huge swathe of hardware and software controls out there on the market. They take quite a lot of administering, quite a lot of feeding and watering to ensure they are secure and working properly. And what we have seen and what we are hearing in the industry is cyber attackers are realising this, and rather than trying to exploit these controls and find ways to break into these controls, they're starting to look at the people who are responsible for these systems and have access to these systems. So it is no longer so much about trying to find a weak point in the perimeter. It's more about trying to find the users within an organisation who have access to its critical data, and then to launch social engineering attacks on these users to try and steal their credentials, because if they have those credentials, then they have access to the network, so they can steal data, encrypt data. So I'd now like to look at 10 takeaway tips to consider within your business to help secure your infrastructure. The first one of which is two-factor authentication, and it quite surprises me how often I come across a client infrastructure where they have not implemented two-factor authentication. It's something that's free, it's available in most cloud services now, and essentially requires an extra layer of authentication when you log into a service. So, for example, Office 365, Google G Suite, two-factor authentication is included as part of your license. It's included in that monthly cost. And essentially, if we use Office 365 as an example, when you're accessing your account, you would enter your email address and your password, and it then prompts for an extra layer of authentication. So that may be using an authenticator app on your smartphone. It may mean you receive a text message, you receive a phone call, you receive an email. As an extra way of authenticating, it is yourself logging into your mailbox, and it's the right person requesting access to that account. So I'd strongly advise, if you're not currently using two-factor authentication, to certainly consider it on as many services and applications as you can. The second tip is updates and patching. That applies to operating systems and applications. When operating systems and applications go end of life, there are no longer any security updates that are released for them. This then presents an opportunity for cyber criminals to find exploits in those systems, because they know that no security updates are likely to be released which will counter those exploits. So strongly recommend you ensure that either through auto update or using third-party tools, you proactively manage updates for your operating systems and your applications. And just on a side note as well, only have applications installed on your network which are required. So to reduce the attack footprint of all of your machines and devices, only have the applications installed that are required for that employee to carry out their function within the business. So any applications that are not required, that are installed, I would recommend uninstalling them. The third tip is securing your home network. This may sound fairly simple, but for home workers, ensuring you have a password on your Wi-Fi as an absolute minimum, but also ensuring the admin password on your router is changed to try and ensure that only users within your household are accessing and have access to any devices on your wireless network. Okay, tip number 4 is to secure your endpoints. Again, this may sound fairly simple, but whatever antivirus solution, anti-malware solution you have installed on your estate, whatever system you're using to manage system logs, event logs, and how to proactively manage your machines, ensure that those devices and you're able to administer them equally as effectively when these users are now working from home as they are in the office, and ensure engine updates for antivirus products are still successfully applied to all of the machines in your estate. Okay, tip number 5, turn off RDP. RDP is a remote control protocol for Windows Server, which allows users to log into a Windows Server either on the network or remotely when working from home. And the RDP protocol presents a huge security risk to your organisation if you have it in place. I can't count the number of times I have worked with a client to understand what caused a cyber attack, to find it was RDP had been opened up to the outside world. What this essentially means is to allow access to your servers. So quite often a business may have a line of business application that's accessible on a server. Users would log into the server to get to that application. Now those users are working from home, they need access into the server to get to that application, and port 3389, which is what the RDP protocol uses, is opened up on the firewall, and that traffic is allowed to flow in externally. What this actually means is this provides a opportunity for cyber attackers to sniff that server and identify that that firewall on the internet has has port 3389 opened up to the outside world, and they can start trying to find a way to attack that system and brute force the login to find a way to log into that server with administrative controls. And there is for anyone who's interested, there's a really interesting report, or certainly I found it interesting, which one of the big AV houses produced, where they created a number of cloud servers around the world as honeypot servers, where they were going to open up port 3389, allow RDP into these servers, and lure cyber attackers onto those servers to see how quickly and how frequently those servers are attacked, and how often cyber attackers are trying to break into those servers. I think 12 servers were created around the globe, and it certainly wasn't a case of months or weeks or even days until those servers were attacked. The fastest server, or the first server to be attacked, was in Paris in Europe, and the time was 1 minute 24 seconds from that server being available and RDP being turned on and accessible externally to when someone was trying to log into that server. The average time was 3 hours and 35 minutes that those servers were being attacked from the outside world. So please turn off RDP or secure it behind a VPN if it has to be used. So some more notes here which have fallen off. It is estimated that around 99% of cyber attacks now require some form of human intervention. So they require a user to click on an email, to enter credentials, to install a program, as a way for something to get installed on the network or some credentials to be harvested. So as important as a technical control, whether that be a firewall or patching that we've already spoken about, or two-factor authentication, equally as important is creating this human firewall within your organisation and raising awareness to your employees in terms of what threats exist and what to look out for. So and just see your users as the first line of defence against the vast majority of these cyber attacks which exist. So tip number 6 is security awareness training, and I would strongly advise investing in some form of security awareness training, which does not involve employees and your teams to sit in front of hours of training videos or spend hours reading, but these platforms provide short, often less than 5-minute, tailored, targeted training videos to all of your employees, and which can be focused on something specific like email, internet access, and allow you to run reports and identify perhaps who are the weak links in your human firewall, and maybe who needs more training and more help and guidance when using their machine on your network. Sort of hand in hand in that is tip 7, which is phishing simulation. And there's been a massive surge in phishing attacks this year since the pandemic, which can be Office 365 impersonation emails, Amazon, it could appear to be an email from your bank, and something to try and encourage you to click on a link in an email and enter your password or enter your credentials. And some of those are incredibly hard to spot. A phishing simulation platform will send some of these emails as a test to your employees and understand who would have clicked and fallen victim to that particular strain of phishing simulation attack. Then allows you to, again, run some reports and identify who may be the weak link in your human firewall there, and who may need some more help and potentially some more security awareness training to raise awareness and reduce that risk. Tip 8 is around policy and the importance of a cybersecurity policy within your organisation to help lay out the requirements and the responsibilities of every user on the network and what controls are in place to secure the infrastructure. We spend a lot of time working with clients to help implement these sort of policies, and I can't explain how important they are. Tip 9 is a cybersecurity incident response plan, which you may think isn't relevant to you, it won't affect you. I hate to say it, it's probably a case of when something happens rather than if something happens. So it's really important to have an incident response plan in place which highlights the key contacts within your business, the criteria of an incident and maybe how to categorise a cyber incident, and then a flowchart to follow. So if something happens, if you experience a cyber incident, a flowchart of what should be done, at what point and by whom. It's also important to consider a way of communicating with these key contacts. If, as part of this flowchart, elements of your network are taken down, the internet is taken down, or access to the internet, it's key to consider how you will communicate with these key contacts if you don't have access to email and have access to the internet. So that's something to keep in mind. And for goodness sake, once you have this incident response plan in place, print it off and keep it somewhere safe. There's no point storing it on your network if you've been subject to a ransomware attack which has encrypted your incident response plan. And to test the plan and to train all users involved. This helps reduce panic and helps a business respond to an incident as quickly as possible. And the final tip, tip 10, is to consider some form of cyber accreditation. CyberLab are assessors for Cyber Essentials and ISMI governance. Cyber Essentials in particular is a really good starting point to help a business take a step back and look at their IT infrastructure and to consider some maybe additional controls or some fine-tuning of some controls within the business. And for organisations to achieve Cyber Essentials, it's estimated that it protects a business against 80% of cyber attacks by putting these 5 fairly simple IT controls in place. So that's all of the 10 top tips. I'm just going to share a slide on the screen which provides a URL link onto our website where we have hosted a infographic where you can access all of the information and the tips I've spoken about today. These tips are obviously not exhaustive, they're far from complete, but I feel like I've summarised what we believe to be the most important steps to help improve your cybersecurity posture and to try and think from the mindset of an attacker and maybe identify or try to identify the weak points in your infrastructure, in your human firewall, and how to focus on these areas. So that's it. Thank you all for listening. I hope no one's fallen asleep, and I'm happy to answer any questions later on in the event. But for now, I will hand back to Lucy. Thank you.
Ryan, thanks so much. Of course, no one fell asleep. That was unbelievably detailed with some fantastic advice. I'm sure lots of people were paying attention, because concerns for security definitely went up a notch with the pandemic. And, not having those security provisions in place can be or is so detrimental to your business. Like Ryan said, cyber attacks are on the rise, rapidly increasing. So, you need to be digitally vigilant to protect from threats, which, as Ryan pointed out, come in many, many different shapes and sizes. So like I said, some fantastic top tips, crucial tips, in fact, for you to go away and think about. And I know for some of you, some of that advice might seem obvious, but like Ryan said, it's surprising just how many of these security provisions just aren't in place. So it's definitely something to think about moving forward. Okay, so our final speaker of the day, Emma Tatlow, also happens to be the CEO of Active Lincolnshire, and she is on a mission through encouraging communities of Lincolnshire to embed physical activity into their daily lives. And she'll be talking about the importance and impact of physical activity on mental health and productivity in the workplace. So really, really important topic right now. So Emma, I hand over to you.
Hi, I'm Emma Tatlow, Chief Executive of Active Lincolnshire. Active Lincolnshire is a charity, and it's our vision to get more people more active more often within the county. I'm here today to talk to you about workplace wellbeing and specifically physical activity and why that's so important to us, perhaps never more than this moment in time. At Active Lincolnshire, we work in partnership with stakeholders to deliver a programme of activities and interventions that help everybody in the county be more active more often. We also work through our partners at Let's Move Lincolnshire to influence and advocate for a whole system change approach that really does enable us to be more active in our day-to-day lives. Let's face it, planning, policies, highways, and a whole manner of decisions made can impact on our ability to be active. Commuting to work, perhaps by bike, would be more safer, more appealing, and we may be more likely to do it if we had a really decent cycle infrastructure across the county. But despite some of these barriers and challenges that perhaps we face, and they are by no means exclusive to Lincolnshire, it's likely that we can all consider ways and implement opportunities for us to be more physically active in our daily lives. Today I'm going to talk a little bit more around what we mean about workplace wellbeing, why and how it can benefit you and your teams and your organisations, and we'll also share some tips for you to consider taking away with you. Please feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat, and we'll be here to answer them as best we possibly can, and we're really looking forward to the debate this morning. What do we really mean by workplace wellbeing? Well, here and now, of course, the meaning of workplace itself has changed significantly. More of us are working from home than ever before, but have we as organisations and staff considered what impact is this actually having on our health? Needless to say, with or without COVID, we should all be thinking about the time that we spend at work and how we can support our mental and physical well-being during that time, particularly for people that are working full-time. We might be spending 40-odd hours a week at work. COVID, of course, has changed the way that many of us are working, and actually working from home can bring its own challenges. Challenges around loneliness and isolation, and that really does affect our mental health. Challenges with musculoskeletal problems, otherwise known as aches and pains, and perhaps poor desk position or different lighting might be impacting on how we feel. Also, there is an aspect of reduced movement for many people now, where perhaps in the past we may have walked or cycled to work. We no longer have that commute. We might just be going downstairs to our living room or even across the landing to our office. No more walking between meetings, no more up and down the stairs in the offices. So actually, our ability to be physically active and move more has reduced for many people that now find themselves working from home. So as employees and employers, we all have a responsibility to support ourselves and each other to see how we can mitigate these problems that we could face. Supporting a healthy, active workforce will actually reduce sick days by 27%. It certainly increases productivity, and ultimately organisations find that they have higher staff retention if their workforce are physically active. So it's about thinking around how we can provide that environment, albeit perhaps at this moment in time a virtual one, where your workforce feel empowered to look after their well-being. There's a quote that I really like that talks about physical activity being the basis of dynamic and creative intellectual activity. And actually, perhaps we could think about the fact that maybe going out on for an hour on our bike, or a run, or a walk, depending on what we prefer, could actually do something really good to spark those ideas and to help us be more creative and productive when we do actually get back to our desk. I was just going to touch on what do we mean by physical activity and what do we understand we should be doing. World Health Organization guidelines actually recommend that adults should be doing 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise a week. So 150 minutes really breaks down into maybe 5 30-minute slots of moderate intensity exercise a week, or 26 minutes a day. So we'd love to hear your comments in the chat. Do you think you reach those targets? Can you confidently say that you're taking 150 minutes of exercise a week? And perhaps if you're not, this will influence you or help you to think how you might be able to do that and start to think around how you could fit that into your day. We do know in terms of Lincolnshire that actually we are one of England's most inactive counties. And in terms of adults, 30% of adults in the county are inactive. And what that means is that they're doing less than 30 minutes exercise a week. What's to say what around that? Some people don't like exercise, some people don't want to go running or cycling. But of course, actually, it's not just about whether we like it, it's about why should we do it. Sitting down for 42 hours a week has a significantly negative impact on our physical health. Sitting down impacts our mental health, and illness could be increased by up to 1/3 if we're not taking any physical activity. And of course, if we're not being active, our chances of obesity increase by 75%. There are huge amounts of data, stats and information on why physical activity is really important for us. And bearing in mind so many jobs these days involve us sitting down, perhaps for 8 or more hours a day. It's really important that we think about how we can break up those chunks of time and how we can start to incorporate more physical activity in our working day. So what does this mean for the workplace? How can we incorporate being more active in the workplace? As an organisation, do you have a wellbeing policy? Have you looked at your wellbeing policy since COVID? Have you thought about the impact of working from home on your teams, not only in terms of productivity and whether they're able to do their job, but also on their mental and physical health and well-being? If you don't, or you think it's an area that you could perhaps explore further, there is certainly an opportunity for you to do that. And the first piece is really to understand the needs of your workforce. Think about the nature of the work that you do, the type of your organisation. We're all different, so there is no one-size-fits-all solution to this. But talk to your teams, have a conversation. How are they feeling? What opportunities would they like to be made available to them? Do you conduct staff wellbeing surveys? Do you regularly ask people how they're doing? And do you have a wellbeing lead in your team, which is somebody that is probably passionate about this subject and can really corral staff, team and engage with people to help them to be more active on a daily basis? We also need to ensure that employees feel supported to be active, to give them that motivation, to give them the confidence that it's okay to get away from your desk and do some movement. Again, that has to fit with the needs of your organisation, but as we're all becoming more adept to working flexibly, perhaps we can build in some time in our day to enable us to be more physically active. In terms of daily habits, it's about sometimes the simple things. Let's break up the time that we're spending sitting down. Let's use the apps, the timers, the Apple Watches, whatever it might be, to tell us to get up and go and have a walk or to do some movement. You could even set yourself mini challenges. Every hour you might want to do something physical, a walk around the garden, some lunges in your lounge, whatever suits you. But have a think about what you can do to break up your day and that time that you're sitting down. Encourage time away from the desk. I think as employers and organisations, we have a sense of responsibility to make sure that our teams feel empowered, that it's okay to go out on your bike. It's good to have a lunchtime leg stretch. Can we think about having walking and talking meetings, and maybe we do those meetings away from being in front of a screen, and we just revert back to a phone call and we have a conversation as we're walking around and getting some fresh air outside. And of course, there is absolutely no shortage of virtual challenges that we can all undertake. So the team Active Lincolnshire, we've taken part in Mayathon and Octoberthon. We all committed to doing our 26 minutes of activity a day. We took part in the September Love to Ride challenge. Not many of our journeys were commuting, but we certainly all made an effort to do some extra miles on our bike. Things like Couch to 5K have been extremely popular since lockdown. So it might be that you actually just look for some of these different existing apps, challenges and virtual opportunities that are out there already and encourage your team to take part, generate a bit of friendly competition, and again, give people the motivation and the empowerment and that recognition that it's okay, they can get away from their desk and they can move more. There's also something about the kind of the tools that we need. And of course, we're all now very conscious about working from home and what do we need to ensure that physically we're working in a good position. There are things like standing desks, there's balance balls. You might not, as an organisation, be able to provide those free of charge to your employees, but you could certainly make them aware that they're available. When we think about being in the office as well, and for those people that are still using their workplace, do you have showers? Is there a bike park where people can leave their bikes and lock them up safely? Do you have the Cycle to Work scheme that makes perhaps buying a bike a little bit more affordable for those people that don't have one? So think about all of those tools, ask your organisations and your colleagues what would make a difference and how would it be easier for them to be physically active on a day-to-day basis. Some of the larger barriers, of course, we do face, and I will come back to the cycling infrastructure. Are we making it easy for people to move outside of using their cars to get around the county? And that's no easy feat in a county as large and as rural as Lincolnshire. However, where there are clusters of businesses in particular areas, perhaps we can work together to lobby for improvements so that we are developing and shaping the future infrastructure for our workforce to make it easier and more accessible for us to be more active. So in conclusion, we do, of course, all need to take ownership of our physical and mental health. We can't insist that people at work move more or take on some of these ideas, but we do, I believe, have a responsibility and a role to play in providing the right information, the right environment that enables our teams to be more active every day. As organisations, we're going to see the benefit of that. We will have a fitter, a healthier, a more motivated workforce. We will see less sick days taken, and ultimately we will see our productivity increase. So we can provide that environment, we can normalise physical activity. Let's not be ashamed to stand up halfway through a Zoom meeting and have a stretch or a move around, because 2 hours of constantly sitting down might not necessarily be good for our physical health. So consider the well-being of your workforce, talk to your colleagues, encourage daily habits that might change the norms as they currently are, and let's together all help our workforces be more active more often. Of course, if you'd like any further information, we'll make sure our contacts are shared in the chat. As I say, welcome your conversation and comments on the back of this presentation, and would love to hear what good work you're already doing out there, because we know that there are some fantastic examples of organisations that really are going the extra mile to help their workforce stay healthy in this current environment. So we'd love to hear from you, contact us, reach out to us, and we would very happily support you on your journey to helping your workforce be more physically active. Thank you.
Emma, thank you so much. Some really, really good advice in there. I can't talk for you guys, but I could definitely do with a kick up the backside when it comes to being more physically active. You know, walking to the fridge and back, or walking from upstairs to my downstairs desk definitely doesn't count. It helps, but it doesn't count. You know, working from home, I think, has definitely shone a spotlight on workplace well-being and the impact that remote working has on our health physically and mentally. So more people, more active, more often, I think, is a great mantra, and will have a positive impact on health in the workplace. I think I might actually do some lunges in the lounge after this, or lunges in the living room. I quite like that. Okay, so that concludes the presentation part of the event. I'd like to say thanks to all our presenters, a massive thanks for, you know, unleashing this wealth of useful information onto us today. I know it's a lot of information to process and digest, but I do hope that you not only found it all incredibly useful and insightful, but they've given you something to go away and think about after the event. And it's at this point that we now open up the floor to virtual questions from you guys. We've had some great questions come in. I'm quite conscious of the time as well, and we've not got long. I want to fire as many questions over to our speakers as possible. So Charlie, I am going to start with a question for you. So how long does it usually take to complete a productivity voucher once an application has been approved?
So thank you, Lucy. So projects can take up to 6 months to complete the work packages agreed within the application. So this is usually dependent on the academic's time, and it can be earlier than kind of 6 months, but our academics do have other commitments such as teaching, research and other projects. So we must manage expectations of businesses. But it can be a maximum of 6 months, but obviously this is dependent on academics' current commitments.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Charlie. Ben, my next question is for you. Are co-working centres open during lockdown?
I can only speak for Mosaic, and yes, we are. The reason being, government advice is work from home if you can, and there's lots of reasons why people might not be able to work from home: mental health, physical health, distractions, like I said, dogs barking in the background, whatever it may be. If you're not productive working from home, then a co-working space is an option. We're a fully COVID secure office. We've put measures in place, including personalised mugs for our members. So there's no communal crockery being used. So we've got lots of different things in place to make it a secure working environment and a safe working environment for people.
I think that's so good to know, isn't it, to give people that peace of mind. But I think it's also fantastic that there is this option to expand on remote working, because like you said, remote working doesn't necessarily mean working from home. So it's nice to know that you've got quite a really nice working environment there. Based on some of the co-working spaces that I've seen, that definitely looks like somewhere that you'd definitely be able to get your head down and get some work done. And Ben, can anyone become a member?
You can, yeah. We've got different levels of membership. At the moment, we can't hot desk because of government guidelines, but there are different levels of membership available, from a dedicated desk light, dedicated desks, and offices. So if people are interested, give us a call on our website, and we're happy to show people around. But yeah, everyone's welcome.
Wonderful. I love that. Everyone is welcome. So Ryan, my next question is directed at you. Of all the tips those brilliant tips that you imparted on us during your presentation, which of these tips do you recommend that we should concentrate on first?
Okay, so I would argue they all add value, but an easy place to start, probably a quick win, is two-factor authentication. So it's something that you can add onto your online cloud accounts without any extra cost, and adding that extra layer of security is just a great way of reducing the attack footprint of your business and those online accounts. So I would say start there, but also just appreciate and understand that the cyber threat landscape is constantly changing. So it isn't a case of implementing 5 tips or 10 tips and then sort of marking cybersecurity off your list as a job well done. Just to see it as an ongoing journey and just to review things on a frequent basis.
Yeah, you're so right. It's one of those things that is constantly evolving. So it's very easy to get that sense of complacency that you've done your job and ticked all the boxes. But the bottom line is you really need to be vigilant and keep your eye on how the industry is moving forward. And the level of sophistication of attacks is getting quite high. So you really need to have an understanding of that as well. So thank you, Ryan.
Exactly.
Emma, I have a question for you now. So someone's asked, I'd like to encourage my team to be more active, but I'm unsure how, as an organisation, we can do that when we are all working from home. So what advice do you have for this reader or viewer, not reader?
Yeah, really interesting question. And I think working from home has inevitably made it more difficult for us all to kind of see what our colleagues are doing and to understand how they're behaving on a day-to-day basis. I think some of the tips that I picked up on in the presentation there, find a wellbeing champion, perhaps somebody in your workplace who does like wellbeing, who does enjoy physical activity, and use them to really get everybody going. Use them to share ideas, create those friendly competitions. And there are so many apps and things available now online. Actually, again, it's just encouraging people to think about how they can use their lunch times, how they can have a break in the middle of the day to get out, get moving, and do some of that physical activity. So I think it's providing people the tools that they can use and implement on their own. And then I really like the idea of these kind of lunchtime leg stretches, lunchtime phone calls. Let's not assume that we have to be sitting down and staring at a screen to be productive and have great conversations. I think actually getting outside can really spark that creativity. So encouraging people to feel free enough to be able to go out, take a walk, and have a phone call. I think all of those things can really go some way to help.
Yeah, I think encouragement is the key word there. Being encouraged can come in so many different shapes and sizes. For me personally, I definitely do need someone to actively tell me to get up and be active. But, you mentioned gadgets, there are platforms, there are apps. Smartwatches are a great way to, give you a little reminder on your wrist. And admittedly, I do have a smartwatch and it tells me to get up and move. And sometimes I just look at it and think, I'll do that later. So, it is so important to be active. So I'm going to take your advice, and after this call, I'm going to implement an active physical activity policy into my work from home setup. Also, Emma, another question. Someone has said, I'm keen to encourage my team to commute to work by bike or foot where possible. Can you share any ideas on how to do this? I know you touched on this just now in your presentation, but it'd be good to just reiterate that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, some of us are now finding ourselves working from home, but inevitably that commute will come back in some shape or form in the future. I think, again, it's around making sure that people have got the facilities that they need in the workplace. So if they're cycling in, if they're running or walking and they need a locker to put their stuff, they need a shower, they need somewhere secure to park their bike, it is thinking through actually all of those elements that make us comfortable to feel that we can cycle to work and we can have a shower when we get there, so we're ready to do our day's work. I also think around commuting, particularly in Lincoln, there is some great park and ride, but the ride bit is actually to hop on a bike rather than a bus. So there's some really brilliant facilities just outside of the city. So for people that are travelling into the city, leave your car in Skellingthorpe, leave it at Burton Waters, hop on a bike and take the off-ride cycle track and get into the city centre that way. So I think employees, again, it might be about signposting, it's sharing information, it's providing facilities that people need to make them feel comfortable to make that transition from travelling in by car to travelling in by foot or by bike. And because of the vastness of this county, that's not always possible for all of us, but I think certainly that last mile or that last couple of miles is achievable.
Yeah, Emma, thank you. Ryan, Ryan, you mentioned Cyber Essentials. Can you explain how a business achieves this certification?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing to mention is there's 2 levels to the certification, Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. So in order to start the accreditation, you must always start with Cyber Essentials. So it's a self-assessment questionnaire. So we provide clients with access to an online portal. They answer a questionnaire about the IT controls within their business, between 75 and 85 questions. We then carry out a pre-assessment check, schedule a call with the client to run through any feedback, any areas that are not yet compliant. We then formally market on the system, award them a certificate. Cyber Essentials is then an annual recertification. Once you hold Cyber Essentials, within 3 months of the certification date, you can progress on to Cyber Essentials Plus, which is, the scope is the same as Cyber Essentials, but Cyber Essentials Plus includes some on-site tests and an on-site audit. And then after achieving Cyber Essentials Plus, that's also annual recertification as well, if that answers the question.
It does answer the question. And on that note, I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut the Q&A there. We had a couple more questions that I didn't get a chance to read out. But, you know, if you want to have your questions answered individually, make sure you do drop an email to Sue Cadd at Lincoln University, SCAD, SCADD, at lincoln.ac.uk, doing it off the top of my head there. Thank you all so much. Some brilliant questions. And to my speakers, thank you so much for giving some fantastic answers. I'm just sorry that we didn't get a chance to answer all of your questions. Now, I'm going to now talk about tech and remote working. So you're now going to listen to me waffle on for the next 10-ish, 15 minutes. So the progress of digital technology, you know, it's made working from home possible for a number of years now. While virtual private networks, or VPNs, cloud computing and video conferencing tools ensure that employees can work effectively and productively, many firms have been reluctant to allow their employees to work remotely. You know, this could be down to trust issues, or maybe technical challenges that are proving insurmountable, or maybe it remains too much of a cultural shift for some employees to accept. But of course, in March, the debate over whether to allow members of staff to work remotely reached a definitive conclusion. And since the pandemic, an estimated 20 million people have relocated to a home office. That is a lot of people. You know, at the beginning of the spring, when the pandemic started and it started gaining dramatic momentum, employees were ordered to let their staff work from home wherever it was possible to do so. Businesses weren't really given a choice. You know, if staff can work remotely, they must be allowed to do so. So it became clear that this crisis would trigger substantial changes in the way we work and collaborate. And technology is a key enabler in making this happen. And although many of the digital technologies required to facilitate home working have been around for a while, been around for years, implementing them at scale is not always straightforward. So, you know, letting one individual work from home might be easy and straightforward, but suddenly forcing an entire workforce to work from home can cause major problems. You know, like I mentioned yesterday, with Metro's big move to remote working, we had to completely recalibrate how we work. Daily meetings that took place in the editor's office were suddenly happening over Zoom. New laptops were issued, training courses were required and desperately needed in some cases. New logins were issued. There were new platforms to grapple with, and for some, new machines to get their heads around. You know, with the pandemic came the hope that in this unprecedented crisis, everyone would realize that digital progress is needed to meet both current and future challenges. And in practice, however, while most organizations made great efforts, great strides to enable as many employees as possible to work from home, and of course some businesses provide far greater remote working opportunities than others, many businesses just weren't fully prepared to roll out remote working on such a large scale, or, you know, they haven't had the chance to make solid structural adaptations to their organization and work processes. But as they say in showbiz, the show must go on, and business continuity is crucial. You know, in addition to that, staff must be protected and be able to work effectively. So the real challenge is to adapt to this culture, or adapt this culture to a remote environment. Thankfully, solutions exist, technological solutions that can be implemented. So technologies allowed us to replicate the office environment, you know, with a handful of tools at our disposal, from Google's G Suite and Microsoft Teams. You know, these platforms offer a centralized place to connect and collaborate. And then there are things like Slack and Zoom. All of these platforms have made it easier to remain connected and productive, even if it does mean that you often feel you're suffering from what I like to call video call fatigue, from the myriad video calls that I have on a daily and weekly basis. And while you don't feed ideas off each other like you would do in person, or get that social side or the usual assistance and support, platforms like this are vital for employee communication, fostering strong relationships and productive, efficient collaboration. And then there are, of course, cloud platforms like Google's cloud platform, Microsoft's Azure, and Amazon's web services, for example. These are all crucial services at a time like this. Embracing cloud-based applications and infrastructure resources can really help ease the pressure from the IT infrastructure, offering greater flexibility and scalability with the capacity to cope with the fluctuating demand. So with cloud computing, essentially, employers can access their working environment from anywhere at any time on most devices. It's great for collaboration, and provided you have a stable internet connection, you shouldn't have any problems with that. Having the right software is equally important. At Metro, we use Windows Virtual Desktop. This basically allows us to create a virtual Windows 10 environment or Windows 10 desktop and access remote applications on any device. So this allows us to access the same desktop environment remotely as we would do in an office. It's particularly beneficial for companies who have large groups of employees performing the same role and requiring access to the same environment, like for us at Metro. I think equally important is the hardware. If you're using a clunky desktop from circa 2012, it's really not going to be conducive to your productivity. The portability of laptops gives them the edge over desktops when it comes to working remotely, allowing employees to easily change up their working location without needing to change device. And, you're really sport for choice when it comes to hardware, from affordable Chromebooks that keep costs down because Chromebook users generally work in the cloud. You've got decent and in some cases premium mid-range machines, to laptops or desktop setups that are at the more expensive end of the scale. So you've got a lot of choice to choose from. And finally, security. Ryan touched on this earlier. He didn't touch on it. He gave us a really in-depth information about security and how you should approach security in relation to your business. And it's something we've discussed yesterday as well, because it is just incredibly important. I think human error is one of the biggest threats to your security. It's all too easy to respond to a phishing email, download malicious content, or click on a dangerous link. We've all done it. Plus, with the security threat landscape in a rapid state of change, like Ryan said, employees often aren't fully aware of the risk their actions pose. So, with remote workers, the physical assets, your laptops, your desktop, your tablet, these things aren't in the office. So you must have the best security software installed. It's so important. It needs to be kept up to date. And, employees need to understand the importance of this. Ensuring devices are protected with a robust antivirus solution that's updated regularly is important. I cannot stress that enough. Using a VPN or business VPN, so a virtual private network, helps increase your online privacy as well, just giving you that extra dose of privacy. So basically, wherever you go online, you leave a trace, especially if you're using a public Wi-Fi hotspot, which of course none of us are quite using at the moment. But a VPN allows you to access the internet via a totally private, encrypted connection. So hackers can't steal your data. That makes it safer to browse the web, access your email, buy stuff online. You can even pay your gas bill, all safe in the knowledge that no one is going to steal your data when you're at home and on your own Wi-Fi network. And then there is, in the not so distant future, one of the things that I really love to do at Metro is write future gazing articles about how new innovative technology is going to completely revolutionize our lives, and 5G is definitely one of them. I think it's going to revolutionize communication, collaboration, automation, and productivity. I think it's yet to realize its full potential. It's still being rolled out across the country. And so many are yet to take advantage of its speedy superpowers. But working from home is about to be disrupted big time by the coming of 5G. I think we can all relate to that eyeball rolling internet speed issue that we all have. I think poor Charlie had it earlier when her screen was frozen. And this because sometimes connectivity just isn't up to scratch. But 5G communications networks, with their exponentially faster connection speeds, capacity, and communication response times, which is also known as latency, so you might hear that term bandied about, all of this will make it possible at astonishing range of innovative new products and services. You'll be able to access so much with so much speed and peace of mind that you can get your work done without those irritating eye rolls. It will deliver better video connectivity and fewer dropped connections. This should remove any lingering fears that a remote workforce will not be good for business. Employers will be more confident that their workforce is connected all the time, and that connectivity won't disappear during an important virtual meeting. It's undeniable that faster wireless networks and greater connectivity can improve how we work remotely. So it'll be interesting to see how 5G is going to make it into fruition in this space. Now, yesterday I mentioned that I wished that virtual reality work applications were a thing, so I could have a brainstorming session or meetings, on a beach in Mexico. It's not too much to ask, is it? The proliferation of 5G is going to make applications like this possible. And I'm not talking about those awful pixelated Zoom backgrounds. We all know the type. I'm talking incredible virtual reality visuals through what's known as XR. So this is basically the combination of extended, augmented, virtual, and mixed reality technologies. So basically what I'm trying to say is remote working is about to get a whole lot more interesting. So businesses could, for example, create virtual meeting rooms, simulating a fixed office space. These will increase, these virtual face-to-face interactions and offer connectivity in advance, far in advance of video meetings. Or, imagine a virtual office where every employee can walk around and collaborate with different colleagues when they want without interrupting others. With VR or XR, distributed team members will be virtually present, working next to each other all the time. It sounds awesome, doesn't it? I know. And the technology is getting more sophisticated as I speak. When Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, took to the stage at the Oculus Connect conference, I think it was last year, he showed he was able to interact with participating co-workers in an immersive virtual world. He also showed just how transformative that technology might be for the way you work in the future. So here I am, just impatiently waiting for this to happen, because I think it is just going to be awesome. Connectivity isn't always reliable, and all unreliability seriously impacts the day-to-day operations. So going back to 5G there, 5G is set to make a real impact. I think for years, it's been rightly pointed out by many experts that businesses have been lagging behind in terms of digital know-how, which, is understandable because it's still a learning curve for a lot of people. But it's finding out what works for you. One thing I will say is that technology moves and evolves at a ridiculously fast pace. I think you only need to look at the smartphone or what your smartphone can do now compared to 5, maybe even 3 years ago. And, the change is monumental. Or, look at the switch from analog terrestrial to digital TV. Lots of people were left with a redundant goggle box because they did not make the switch. So when it comes to tech, you have to move with it or risk being left behind. And this is especially crucial in business. Without the right infrastructure in place, businesses will find they fall behind and run the risk of not running as efficiently as they would have had the world not almost come to a complete halt due to a worldwide virus. Technology is not just an enabler anymore. It is essential to most organizations' reinvention, and the skills needed to leverage on those tools will be key to success. Of course, it doesn't replace the physical workplace. A central hub, which, as Paul pointed out yesterday, will always have its place, known for stand-up meetings, people working side by side, breakout areas, walls covered with sticky notes, or in my case, a corner of the office just laced with gadgets that I'm testing. And in some cases, you get a well-stocked fridge or at least free tea and coffee. But it's as good as we're going to get until virtual reality and I believe I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. I'm having serious internet problems at the moment, which is horribly ironic given the what we're talking about here. So I can't remember where I got up to, but I would like to thank our brilliant lineup of speakers. I'm sure you'll agree they've really helped to make this event what it is by covering such a wide range of topics, from increasing productivity and a co-working future to cybersecurity solutions and the impact of exercise on mental health, all such incredibly important topics in this current climate that I do hope you have found incredibly useful and insightful as you think about navigating your businesses through the coronavirus crisis. Now, before I sign off, once again, I'd like to say thanks to Blue Cube and the University of Lincoln for putting together this fantastic event. And of course, to all the brilliant speakers who have dedicated their time to getting involved in this vital event for businesses in Lincolnshire. I'm going to sign off now. So all that's left to say is thank you so much for tuning in. Apologies again for the connection issues. I do hope you managed to hear more of the event rather than less of it. It's been really lovely to have you tune in, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Goodbye.